Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing and a happy new year to all of you. However, if like me, you hate January, you consider it to have too many bloody days in it and for it to be a dark, dank, horrible, uh, miserable month, pointless, boring month, then I bring a message of hope because in January there are some good fights on. And I thought we'd do a little just a sort of brief preview of some of the fights. They're not all these aren't all of them. These are just the main ones that I've picked out. um, so let's go through them, and try and, if you're like me and you hate January, and it's got about 90 bloody days in it, I hate it. Yeah, let's try and lift our spirits and be a bit more positive. So, where do we start? How about we start with the 6th, Saturday the 6th of January, where there is a DAZN card over in Las Vegas, and top of the bill. Well, is it top of the bill? I don't know, but it's an interesting fight. Is Ohara Davies versus Ismael Barroso. Now you will remember Ismael Barroso, flooring Rolly Romero, and it was a premature stoppage as far as I and many others are concerned. It was a terrible stoppage. So Barroso is kind of getting I think this is for the WBA interim title or some bollocks like that. But not I don't care about the title, but Barroso is deservedly getting another chance at a, contender. And Ohara Davies, 2 defeats on his record. I mean, he's 25 wins, 2 defeats. Lost to Catterall. That was the last person to beat him. Josh Taylor was the first, stopped him. He's been on a sort of quiet run. Beat Lewis Ritson last year. When was that? About March time, maybe. And yeah, he's been quietly doing his thing. Whether he deserves any kind of title shot is a different matter, but he's sort of manoeuvred himself into being a half-decent contender. So him and Barroso, who looks, he said he's 40. Barroso looks like he's 60. I mean, he's had a hard life, but clearly he can still fight because he was beating the crap out of Rolly, and I know Rolly ain't great, but for a 40-year-old guy to do that to a much younger, supposedly top 10 or top 15 fighter it's a good gig. It proves he's got something left. I would expect Davies to beat him. Don't forget, I mean, we go back to whenever it was, 2016 or something, when Barroso got knocked out by Anthony Crolla in 7 rounds. I mean, we're talking about a guy who, let's just say, he's seen better days and put it that way. All right, so there's that on the card. Can you see me? Because the sun is zooming in through the blinds and I'm covered in stripes like a bloody zebra. Anyway, forget about it. Right, moving on. Also on that card, actually, we've got Virgil Ortiz Jr., 19 wins, 19 KOs, no defeats and no draws. Yes, he's making a bit of a comeback. And he's in against a guy called Frederick Larson, who is 30 wins, 3 defeats. But here's the thing with Larson. He fights out of Illinois, US, but he's from Ghana. All 3 of his defeats have been knockouts. 22 of his 30 wins, are by KO or TKO. And he was last seen being defeated anyways. The last of his defeats was against Charles Hatley, who I think is a Don King, or was a Don King fighter, who fought one of the Charlos and got done in about 6 rounds. At the time, Hatley was 29 wins, 2 defeats and 1 draw. But if you're getting knocked out, and got knocked him out in the 10th round, Hatley. If you get knocked out by Charles Hatley, that was back in 2021. I don't fancy your chances, to be honest, against Virgil Ortiz. I think Ortiz would win this by knockout. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see. Always interesting to see a big banger, and Ortiz is certainly that. And you got Arnold Barbosa Jr., who's on that card, 28-0. Exciting fighter. Only 10 KOs out of the 28 wins, but he hasn't got the big pop, but he does get stuck in, and he puts on entertaining fights. It last seen unanimously outpointing Jose Pedraza, although it was 11 months ago, so quite a long while ago. In 2022, he beat Danielto. Is that Danielto? Is that how you pronounce his name? Zorrilla. He beat him over 10 rounds. Antonio Moran over 10 rounds. These are sort of, I mean, Zorrilla was being promoted as being a possible, contender and may still turn out to be one. We don't know. But most of his opponents is the sort of B- level. So, but a good fighter. I mean, a very good fighter. And he's fighting Zolisani Undonjeni. I think that's how you pronounce the guy's name. And Mr. Donjeni from South Africa, 31 wins with 18 KOs, 3 defeats. One of them was a stoppage, but his last defeat was actually his last fight. That was back in mid-2023. Ernesto Mercado beat him over 10. Mercado undefeated, 10-0 at the time. So yeah, Barbosa probably on points would be a pick. Maybe a late stoppage. But that's a good card. I mean, that's not a bad card at all. And Raul Curiel is also on the card. Raul Curiel, 13-0. Fighting a guy called Elias Diaz. Curiel has 11 KOs out of 13 wins, no draws, no defeats. So he's got a bit of pop. Mexican, 28 years old. These Mexicans, you should never ever sleep on them, and he's actually looking like the goods. He's looking like he's pretty good. Diaz, 12 wins with 7 KOs, 1 defeat, which was on points, which was 2 fights ago against Luis Lopez. He lost over 8 rounds, and then he came back with a journeyman. He beat a journeyman over 1 round. So that was his only action actually in 2023, and that was about 11 months ago. You got to favour Curiel, but you never know. But a good card. That's a good card. Saturday the 6th of January on DAZN from Las Vegas. If we move on to Saturday the 13th, we've got a very good card over in Canada with a couple of fights that I think will probably deliver. Now, one probably top of the bill. Well, it is top of the bill. Is Artur Beterbiev making a return. 19-0 with 19 KOs. You don't need me to tell you about Artur Beterbiev. He is knocking on a bit. I think he's 38. And how he still makes light heavyweight, I don't know, because he is a giant at light heavyweight. Absolute giant. Very, very hurtful puncher. Very skilled. Sets up his power well. Doesn't throw many punches that won't hurt you if they land. But he's in against Callum Smith. And Callum Smith was a gargantuan super middleweight. 6'3", probably walked around at cruiserweight. How he got down to super middle for all those years, I don't know. Very disappointing performance against Canelo, where he was basically just trying to survive from the off. And the much smaller man just beat up the much bigger man. Now, okay, you can say he was weight drained. He certainly looked weight drained. But nevertheless, you expect... to be honest with you, at light heavyweight, he still looks big for a light heavy. There ain't an ounce of fat on him. But he scored a couple of scary knockouts. He's only had 2 fights at light heavyweight. But the manner of the knockouts, one was against Gilbert Rivera, stopped him in 2 rounds, knocked him out. It was a scary knockout. It was a right to the head, and Gilbert, I think he was spasming and he just couldn't get up. And he was 21 wins, 3 defeats, 1 draw coming in, European level, but a good introduction at light heavy for Smith. Then he fought Matteo Baldalic. That was over in Jeddah, and scored another highlight reel knockout. Knocked him down twice in the 4th round and knocked him out. Very picturesque knockout. But that was in August of 2022. And Beterbiev hasn't been, super busy. He had that fight with Yard, though, which may have put a few miles on the clock. That was last year. And Yard, very gallant, lost the fight, but certainly gave Beterbiev all he could think about. Prior to that, Beterbiev beat Joe Smith Jr. in 2 rounds. Yard was supposed to go out early, but didn't. Hung tough, did the business. So, yeah, this is an interesting fight. I mean, I think Smith at this weight, there's some power there. There's some real power there, definitely. Also on that card, you've got Jason Maloney. And Maloney is the WBO Super Bantam champ. He was, a couple of years ago, got stopped by, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago? He got stopped by Naoya Inoue. Naoya Inoue, of course, we all know about him. Brilliant fighter. Stopped him in 7 rounds. And Maloney came back to win the WBO Bantam champ title. He's the champ now. But, that's aged very well, that victory for Inoue. Very well. And Maloney 26 wins, 2 defeats. The other one's on points, but he takes on Saul Sanchez, who has 20 wins and 2 defeats. Sanchez from the US, 26 years old. Now, here's the interesting thing about Sanchez. He has a 1-round win over Jericho O'Quinn. And Jericho O'Quinn is the guy who was getting his arse handed to him by Peter McGrail, the Scouse Lomachenko, and then got McGrail, and then he flattened McGrail with 1 punch. Bang, it was all over. Do you remember like that fight? It was recently, right? It was only a few weeks ago. He's got a 1 punch. Sanchez has got a 1-round knockout over this guy. So, yeah, he brings something to the table. So I'm looking forward to that fight too. I think that'll be a good little tussle. It'll be interesting to see if that O'Quinn fight was an aberration, but we'll have a look. We'll have a look at that. Anyway, who else is on that card? I can't remember. I had a look beforehand. I can't remember. Well, anyway, it's a good card. Like I say, it's on ESPN Plus, by the way, from Canada. Saturday, January the 13th. Have a look at that one. Then we move on to January the 20th, again, a Saturday, from the Echo Arena in Liverpool. This is a Sky card. And there's a couple of good fights. There's a few good fights on here. There's Jack Cullen, who was seen causing an upset over Mark Heffron to collect the British Super Middle and Commonwealth Super Middle titles. A shocker. Jack Cullen's got 4 defeats on his record, and they're all by knockout. And he's not regarded as being a particularly big puncher. 22 wins, 4 knockouts, 1 draw. Only 10 of his victories, of his 22 wins, are by stoppage. And he sprung that surprise on Heffron, knocked him out in 3 rounds. That really was a shocker, because Heffron had found some form and was, really looking good at the weight, having sort of rebuilt after being stopped at middle by Liam Williams. And only the fight previously to the Heffron fight, Cullen got done in 4 rounds by Diego Pacheco. And in 2021, Kevin Sarjo stopped him in 6. So this guy is someone who keeps coming back and fights really well. He's 30 now. He's 6'3", Cullen, so he's tall for the weight. But he's 30, so he's obviously in his prime. But those defeats haven't bothered him. They've kept him, they've kind of motivated him. And I really like Cullen. I've got a lot of respect for him. Well, he takes on Zach Chelli. And Zach Chelli, as we know, 26 years old, so he's still a young man, 6 foot tall, so he's quite tall for the weight, so he's super middle. And Zach Chelli, he was defeated mid last year, June, July last year, by Mark Jeffers, and that was a bit of a shocker, because Jeffers, although undefeated, was 15-0 at the time. He only had 4 KOs on his record, and a good, tough, attritional fighter. But Chelli, who was, I think, coming off a victory over Anthony Sims Jr., very good, very impressive victory, wide decision. He was expected to deal with a sort of rough and tumble Jeffers, but Jeffers imposed his style onto Chelli, and it was a close-ish fight. Don't get me wrong. It was a unanimous decision to Jeffers, but it was a good fight. It was, he deserved to win. It was a close, I think I had 96, 94. I think I might have had it. A couple of the judges had it 97, 93 or 97, 94. But very good win for Jeffers, but definitely an upset in terms of Chelli's career. And that saw Chelli slip to 14 wins with 7 KOs, 2 defeats, both on points, and a draw. So Chelli now against Cullen, he's been given this opportunity to rebuild. If he loses this one, difficult to see. He's young enough to rebuild, certainly, but it's going to be a setback. It's going to be another major setback, I think. So that's a really intriguing fight. And again, this is a Sky card, so no surprise to see Natasha Jonas on it, taking on Michaela Mayer. Again, a very interesting fight. Both Jonas and Mayer have jumped up several weight divisions. Certainly Jonas has had great success. She picked up a couple of titles at super welterweight. She dropped down to beat Candy Wyatt for the IBF welterweight title. Michaela Mayer, career-long super feather, jumped up. I think the last fight was at light welter or something like that, super lightweight. Well, she's jumping up all the way to welter now to take on Jonas. Jonas is, I think, 39 years old, 14 wins, two defeats and one draw. Michaela Mayer, 19 wins with one defeat. Defeat was controversial to Alicia Baumgartner. And, of course, Baumgartner getting popped for steroids, for PEDs. You've got to wonder, haven't you, about that. Michaela Mayer, to be honest, has behaved quite a dignified manner. Because if that was me, I'd be saying, well, she was obviously juicing when she beat me. And to be honest with you, I don't think Mayer lost that fight anyway. I think a lot of people think she beat Baumgartner. I've seen worse decisions, but I definitely thought Mayer won. So I think this matchup with Jonas is really, really interesting, really good. And Jonas has looked great in recent years. But Mayer's her best opponent by far in recent years. I think so. Even the title-winning efforts, a lot of them were kind of gimmies. Not that I'm knocking Natasha, but she did beat a couple of undefeated girls when she was up at super welterweight. But Mayer and Jonas, good fight. I think Mayer's about 32, 33, and Jonas 39. But there ain't a lot of miles on either girl's clock, put it that way. On the card, you also got Mark Jeffers, who's undefeated, 16-0. He's taking on Jermaine Brown. We just talked about Jeffers beating Chelly. This is his first fight since then. Jermaine Brown, good tough guy, 13 wins with only 4 KOs, 2 defeats that are back-to-back. Ivan Zucco beat him over in Milan over 10 rounds, unanimous decision. And the dear old Zach Chelly beat him over 10 as well. And he scored a 3-round, sort of facile 3-round win over a journeyman since then. But Jeffers, you would think, would be a bit too busy for him. But I can see the styles gelling well here. And this being a good little fight. I would pick Jeffers to win, but don't rule out Brown entirely. You just never know, do you? And he brings it. Brown brings it. So, yeah. And you also got Karis Artinstall on that card. She's 5-0 at the moment, taking on a lady I don't know much about. Lila dos Santos Furtado is her name, at least according to BoxRec. She's 9-1. But you would expect Artinstall, unless this girl is a hidden gem. Brazilian girl, this Miss Furtado, 9 wins, 1 defeat, only 1 KO. Nothing unusual in the women's game. KOs are rare. But Artinstall, you would expect to defeat her probably on points. I mean, Artinstall has only got one victory by KO, but then these 10 2-minute rounds don't lend themselves to being particularly good as far as, as far as the KO ratio goes. So that's that card. Sky from the Echo Arena in Liverpool, Saturday, January the 20th. Let's move on to January the 27th. Again, we have another Saturday card. In fact, we have 2 cards. And the first one is going to be on DAZN from Belfast. And a couple of interesting fights on there. Lewis Crocker, who's 18-0. Tough man. Will fight anyone type. Real rough and tumble, tough guy. 18 wins, no draws, no defeats, 10 KOs. Last seen beating the crap out of Tyrone McKenna, who's since retired. McKenna, very, very tough. Very, no quitting that kid at all. Well done to McKenna and happy retirement to him. But he got the crap beaten out of him by Crocker. No question about it. I think Crocker won every round. I think I might have given McKenna 1 or 2 rounds, but 2 of the judges had it a whitewash, 100-90. But Crocker's fun to watch because he has that tough guy thing. Very sort of meat and potatoes fighter. No frills. Just nothing fancy about him, but skillful as well. I mean, he has some skill. He jabs well and uses the. He's not just a come forward face first slugger. Put it that way. He's got the basics are very good with him. And he fights Jose Felix. Now, you will remember Jose Felix as flattening Gary Cully in his last fight in 3 rounds. Cully at the time was undefeated with 16 wins, no draws and no defeats. Was much fancied to beat Jose Felix. But what do we say about these Mexicans? You sleep on them at your peril. And Felix is 31 years old, 40 wins with 31 KOs, 6 defeats, 2 by stoppage and 1 draw. Mexican warrior, road warrior, good fighter, Went the distance with Sando Martin. No shame in that. He lost a unanimous decision. Lost to Tyrone McKenna. Those were the two fights before he fought Cully. McKenna outpointed him unanimously as well. That was in Belfast. So he's coming back to Belfast to fight Lewis Crocker. This is going to be a good one. These styles are going to gel. I favour Crocker to win, but I think you never know. These Mexicans, Jesus Christ, they're tough, aren't they? And on that card, you've also got Chev Clark against Tommy McCarthy. Now, McCarthy is coming off a bad defeat. I think it was in Poland. He got stopped in 7th round by Mikhail Cieslak. And I haven't seen that fight, but I'm told he looked really flat and really uninspired and kind of lacking in confidence. And that was for the EBU Cruiser title, which McCarthy has held before. He's got 20 wins now with 10 KOs, 5 defeats, 3 by stoppage. He lost twice to Riakporhe by stoppage. I was sitting ringside for that one. And he lost twice to Chris Billum-Smith. One of those was a stoppage. The first one was quite a close, well-contested fight. And the second one, he got stopped, was it 10 rounds, 8 rounds, something like that? And the first fight was actually a split decision to Chris Billum-Smith, which don't look too bad. But since then, since losing to Billum-Smith, there hasn't been much going on at all, apart from that Cieslak stoppage. Now, he could go either way. He can say, look, that Cieslak fight was an embarrassment. I didn't do myself justice. I'm jumping straight back in at the deep end with Clark. Clark's 7-0 with 5 KOs, and I'm gonna jump back up the ladder, in one fell swoop by taking this undefeated guy's record. Now, Clark, last seen going the distance with Vasil Dukar, who was a good European gatekeeper, I'd say. Went the distance with him, over 10. Stopped David Jameson, the Scot, in 5. And he ain't a bad domestic level fighter. But apart from that, there ain't a great deal of quality on the 33-year-old Clark's record. And I'm not knocking him. He's a good tough cruiser. But if McCarthy's up for this, and if he's really looking to redeem himself after that bad defeat in Poland, he might be able to cause a bit of a splash here. I don't know. We'll have to see. And yeah, I think that's a really good matchup. Also on the card is I don't know who else on the card. I think it's Sean McComb, Paddy Donovan is on, but they haven't been given. It's to be announced. They haven't. The old TBA thing is in place at the moment, so I can't really comment on the opponents. But both guys worth watching. Definitely worth watching. Now, on that same date, Saturday, January the 27th, there was a fight over in Phoenix, Arizona between Jaime Munguia and John Ryder. Very interesting fight. Munguia 42-0, 33 KOs, no draws, no defeats. Went the distance last time out with Sergei Derevyanchenko. I think he beat Jimmy Kilrain Kenny, stopped him in 5. But Kelly was having some success before he got stopped. It wasn't a bad performance. Maybe a little bit revealing about Munguia. He can be outboxed. He's also beaten Tiriano Johnson, stopped him in 6. Also stopped Kamil Zerameta in 6. Outpointing Gabe Rosado over 12. Beat Gary O'Sullivan, 11th round stoppage. That was back in 2020. Majority decision over Dennis Hogan. I think that was in Mexico as well. That was 2019. But so he's fought, decent fighters, decent level fighters, B- level fighters, some of them B maybe. And he's taken on John Ryder, of course, who's coming off that incredibly brave, gritty performance against Canelo, where I think I gave him a couple of rounds, but Canelo dominated him, busted his nose early, floored him. I think he floored him in the 5th, and I thought, this is it. It's the curtain's coming down now. But no. Ryder hung tough. What a tough man. Had the crap beaten out of him by Alvarez, but at the same time, there's Canelo in the opposite corner. Went the distance. He went over to Mexico, of course. That was Cinco de Mayo? Or close to Cinco de Mayo, wasn't it? He had everything against him, Ryder, but went the distance with Canelo. So he's a road warrior. We know he's a road warrior. Most of his career, Ryder has been thrown in at the deep end. Ryder has been put in as the guy who is supposed to lose, and very often he will win. He's 32 wins with 18 KOs, 6 defeats. He's only been stopped once, and that was way back against Nick Blackwell. Must have been 2014, 15, something like that. Since then, he hasn't been stopped. And again, he's been thrown in at the deep end in the other guy's backyard. And it's happening again. Now, I would say Munguia is looking to stop Ryder, because then he can say, well, I stopped him. He went the distance with Canelo, but I stopped him, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fair enough. But this is a tough call for Ryder. Ryder's 35 now, and that Canelo fight must have put some miles on the clock, to put it mildly. But he's getting well paid. He's had the Canelo payday. This is a good payday. At least when he finishes his career, he might have some money in the bank, which is more than most fighters can say. But to be honest, I only see a Munguia win, probably by stoppage. But anyway, that's it. Those are the ones I've picked for January. A good, decent level, box quality of boxing to watch. And yes, what do you think? Have I missed any out? Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. It's not looking too bad. God, I hate January. I hate it. Like I say, it's never ending. 60, 70, 80, 90 days. God. And then February comes along, that's only 28 days, or 29 days if it's a leap year. Is it a leap year this year? I don't know. Anyway, leave your comments below, like I say, and I'll have a read. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Hit the like button as well. And yeah, thanks a lot. Spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Much appreciated. Catch you later, and bye-bye for now.